I'll start here with you. Cheers, man. It's great to see you. What'd you do for the lift today?
Full body.
Full body? What's that? Just like a hammer? Like, are you going, here's a good start.
Upper body, lower body.
But are you pounding the weights at this point? Yeah.
There we go.
We'll set the stage. Schmaltzy, Jordan Schmaltz was on this thing last. He's a hockey guy. He's a broadcaster now. He thought this was going to get him stoned. So,
This takes me back to the cage.
the JV time?
Yeah.
Were you there the time when JV put a bunch of sage into a bucket and it started smoking everything out? He had to take it out to the field?
I think so, yeah.
Were you here for that?
I think I was 23.
Was that 23?
I think so.
That's awesome. No, so what's your lifting like this first couple months of after playing?
So far, it's been pretty much the same workouts, just without the hitting and throwing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Agility stuff. I mean, still do some like basic agility stuff, but not like baseball specific stuff.
Yeah, I asked that because when I got done playing, that was like a really hard thing for me to figure out.
I'm still going to the same place.
Really? So you're
Same
still like
trainer and
training?
everything. Yeah. Yeah. Like somebody today was like, "You making a comeback?" I'm like, no, just
I mean, you look
working
great.
out. Absolutely not making a comeback.
Chelsea was, when we were putting chairs, we had these little black chairs over there that we were going to put over this. And I was sitting in them this morning and I was like, I'll feel comfortable on this. But we have a guy who played multiple years of Major League shortstop who looks like an NFL linebacker who's coming here. So bring the big chairs out.
I appreciate that.
Bring the big chairs out.
These guys over here?
Yeah, you see those?
Yeah, these look more comfortable too.
Yeah, I figured you would like
Those
that.
would've been.
I figured you would like that.
Yeah,
So
appreciate it.
So, Crawl, like I said, I'm super pumped to have you and talk to you because there's a lot of reasons, which I'm sure I will sprinkle in over the course of the conversation. But I was like so excited to talk to you that I felt like I was a little nervous. And then you got over here and your stoic voice just easily brought me right back down to neutral. And I think from someone who, like myself, who's fascinated with watching people perform, that's like the first thing that sticks out to me, that you were just somebody who was able to sustain that, which ultimately, do you know off the top how many games you played at shortstop you started? Because you started the most in San Francisco history, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's over 1,600.
That's incredible. That's the most in the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how many years
At
was
shortstop,
that?
yeah.
At shortstop. And that was 13 years?
Yeah, sounds right.
And then you was 14.
11 to 23 at the Giants, and then
I can't do the math on that. That sounds like 13, 14.
ish. Yeah.
Ish. We'll give it an ish. And then you went to St. Louis this year, which my uncle won a World Series with the Cardinals in '82.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so every time we went to St. Louis, I actually felt like I was in like my grandparents' basement. They kind of have no knock on St. Louis, where they were kind of like into that. Did it feel like that on the home side, like an older vibe?
No,
I never saw the home side, obviously.
Yeah, no, it was nice clubhouse, a lot of space, more than San Francisco.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How's the amenities?
Solid.
They have a sauna?
They do.
They do have a sauna.
Yeah, a little bit bigger than the one in San Francisco.
Was it hot?
Yeah.
You gotta have
I
good
feel like,
heat.
is it a sauna if it's not hot?
Well, we had the infrared, and then we had the good heat one. I don't think infrared is under the same vein as a sauna. So that's my perspective. But I think you got to have real 200-degree heat where you can steam it and you can get it rocking.
That's more your area than mine.
Yeah,
it's your field.
And we don't have to stay into that. I want to stay into this 1,600 plus multiple years in Major League shortstop. In a unique thing, when we were kind of brewing these teas, you talked a little bit about the weather and the wind, which if anybody who knows Oracle at all, that's like the main thing I think that I remember people talking about is how the wind is and all those things. But then also, you were part of the YouTube cheer, and maybe not YouTube, but remember the series the Giants did years ago? I think you guys had won the World Series. It was like, do you remember that? I can't remember what that was called. It was like a documentary.
What was it called? The Franchise.
And you were on that, right? Were you on that team?
Yeah. It was 2011 because it was after the 2010 World Series that they did that, and I came up in 2011. So I think they show my debut.
Wow.
Or something like that.
All right, then that's where we got to kick it off, because I was in the Northwoods League playing and I'm going to tell you this story. I'll say it on a recorded podcast because I've said this a lot. I saw that show, the franchise. Obviously, it kind of puts into your brain about you become this Giants fan. I grew up in Michigan, so I was a Tigers guy growing up, but we were 3 hours Eastern time, so I was never watching a Giants game, right? Mm-hmm. I was in summer ball with Veely. We were playing for the Eau Claire Express, and we were watching the franchise, and we were watching that after our games. I don't remember how it worked, but we were watching the Giants. And then years later, in 21, Veely calls me, kind of gets me an interview kicked off with Cap and the Giants, and we come to San Francisco. And now I'm with the Giants. And that was like our, Veely and I's like connection, like the franchise. Like we were like, remember we were watching that 10 years ago, and now we're here. It is funny. The irony of all this is, and I've shared this many times, and Wotus, if he ever remembers this, I know you and Will are close. My first day ever on the job with the Giants, I got a text. It was kind of the end of COVID, and we had to do 48 hours. If you were a consultant like myself, you had to do a 48-hour quarantine before you joined the team. Mm-hmm. So I get a text that night before my first ever day in the big leagues as a teacher, as a coach in this role. And they were like, hey, you're going to talk to the team in the hangar. I don't know the hangar yet. I don't know all these people are going to show up, but you know the hangar.
Spring training, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that probably brought bad memories for you at 7 a.m. in the hangar.
I remember some meetings.
Yeah. And I had to give a presentation the first day. And I felt like I did okay, but all I could think about was in the front row, it was Buster Posey, you, Brandon Belt, and Longo. But the you three were, from my memory, were in that like franchise. Mm-hmm. And you guys were the powerhouses of this core thing. And I gotta be honest with you, I've never been able to tell you this till now, and it feels good now. That was one of the most nerve-wracking moments I'd had in my career of speaking. And I can't remember what I said. And afterwards we were in the locker room, and we're getting ready to go out to the field. And Wotus walks up to me and he goes, did pretty good, kid. He goes, but let's get you up and we got to get out to the field. Everyone's out there. And I was like, yeah, but did I do okay just now? Because you're embracing this thing. And I'd been seeing this thing for years, because you guys were very iconic of that brand for over a decade, right? And now I'm standing in this thing, talking to this thing. It's an intimidating moment. And I asked Woe if I did well. And he goes, oh, no one heard you. He goes, no one was listening to you. And he goes, all they need to know is that you could stand up there and speak, but we need to get out to practice. And that was my first 30 minutes ever on the thing. And I just remember staring at you guys in the front row.
Well, I'm glad you don't remember what you said, because I don't remember.
I know you don't. The Wotus was genius. He was wise. He knew. But that was, for me, somebody who came in at the end of a tenure, and you to have a perspective of coming up in 11 and going all those years and experiencing World Series right away. And then also, I guess, coming in 2011, right after that team wins the World Series. Mm-hmm. If you can remember, let's go back into that time of your life before all the starts, and you kind of come up into the big leagues and you're playing shortstop at Oracle. What's this feeling like? If you can even now to be post-career and to articulate on things like that, I guess it's a two-part question. What did it feel like then, but more so even as I'm asking you right now? Like, what does that feel like? What does that hit you of what that did to you as a person?
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm buzzing. I told you I was excited. I've had the morning to think about this.
I think it's definitely fun to think back on. I've done it, with the debut that I had. I guess I've been asked about it
a lot.
A lot of times throughout my career. So it's not like I don't know. It's not something new to think back on or anything like that. So I don't know about what it did to me as a person or something like that. Like, I didn't really think about it. I haven't really thought about it in that way. I guess just because I've talked about it so many times, but so it's just become like habit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could definitely talk about like how I was feeling and
please
and stuff like that. So I mean, first of all, I was in 2011. I was in High A when I got the call up. Supposed to be in AAA.
Wow. Okay.
So we can go through that whole story. Second to last game of spring, minor league camp, broke my finger. and was supposed to go to AAA. Ended up staying down here in Arizona for 6 weeks or so, something like that.
Yeah.
When I was about ready to start playing games again, instead of having me face the guys in extended, throwing balls all over the place, they have me go to San Jose instead.
Okay.
It's kind of as like my rehab assignment before going to AAA.
Yeah.
So I went to high A I think I was there for like a week and a half, where I called Bobby Evans, the GM at the time, and or assistant GM at the time, and I'm like, hey, like what's the plan here? Because like feeling good. I've been here for a week and a half.
How old are you right now?
2011. I was 24.
Okay.
So this is mid-May.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking to Bobby, and he's like, just sit tight. Like we got some things going.
Sure.
Like we'll get back to you soon. And we went down to Bakersfield because we were about to go on a road trip too. So that's where I was kind of like, am I going on this road trip?
Yeah.
Like,
What's my plan here?
Going.
Right.
And played 1 or 2 games in Bakersfield, I think. And I had a great game. Got a call around midnight that night, and it's from Bobby, and he's like, hey, how quick can you get to Fresno? I'm like, well, it's like midnight in Bakersfield, Bobby. Like,
there's some baseball story for you.
We took a team bus. Like, what do you mean? How quick can I get to Fresno?
Yeah.
Like, this is 2011 too, so I can't just hop in an Uber and
Sure.
go to Fresno. He's like, oh, okay. And he's like kind of thinking about it for a second, because I'm like, well, like,
yeah, you're confused.
Well, cool. I'm going to AAA, I guess. Like,
sure.
And he's like, all right, well, we have Chris Stewart coming up, because this was the night Buster got hurt.
Okay.
He got run over at home plate. He got hurt. People don't really remember that Mike Fontenelle also got hurt that game. So he's like, well, we got Chris Stewart coming up to San Francisco from Fresno, and you're going to be joining him. So I was just wondering how you could get there, and we could get you both on the same flight.
Come on.
Yeah. So that's how I got my call up.
Dude, I had no idea where you were walking me just now.
Yeah. No, I had no idea where Bobby was going with it either at the time, other than I thought I was going to AAA.
So you have but you would have no idea that that's going to happen at that moment.
No.
That's not even on your radar.
I thought I was rehabbing to go to AAA. Like I hadn't really thought. Of course, I knew that Buster had gotten hurt.
Yeah.
But figured there was somebody else that would fill in for Fontenot that's already on the 40-man and stuff like that, because I'm not on a 40-man at this point either.
So they have to move a spot.
Yeah,
at that time. And maybe now with the injury, I'm not sure.
Chris Stewart might not have been on the 40-man either. I'm not sure, but yeah, there were a couple moves made. I can't remember what they were. Obviously, Buster probably
for
going
sure
on a 60-day was one of them. But
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I got my call up. We went to San Francisco, played the last game of the series. I didn't play in that one. That's when I was on the franchise.
Let's go. I was probably watching it. No Claire. Who's that guy?
Yeah, right. And then we flew to Milwaukee, and that's that next day I had my debut.
So how many games were you were on the team for how many games before Milwaukee?
It was just that the last game of the series. So it was a day game in San Francisco. I got there an hour and a half maybe before game time, something like that.
Oh man, dude.
Wasn't in the lineup, but I'm still like,
you're amped,
trying to figure out like
it's moving.
I had been to the clubhouse before, I think for exhibition games in 2010, but that was my only other time there. So I'm like trying to like find where everything is and make sure I have all my stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like all of a sudden, well, here's the game, and I'm just hanging out in the dugout, just amped up the whole time. Like, am I going to go in? Kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Didn't end up going in. And then we fly to Milwaukee, and I played that next day.
And from then on, it was pretty much smooth sailing. I mean, not smooth sailing. I
was very nervous going into that first game.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying from then on, it was kind of, that was what you did. Like, what was it like after the?
When did you sustain a little bit?
Okay.
With Miguel Tejada.
Yeah.
In 2011.
Gosh, what a name drop.
Right. Takes you back.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, it stunned me for a minute there.
Yeah.
So you're platooning with.
tells you how old I am,
I just got to say it real quick. So you're platooning with Miguel Tejada.
Miguel Tejada.
Just need to get it out of me.
So yeah, like for a lot of that year, kind of platooning with him, and didn't have a great year by any means. I wouldn't say it, but I solidified myself as a giant shortstop or anything like that. But I actually got sent down in August.
Okay.
To AAA. So that was my first action in AAA.
Yeah.
After being in the big leagues.
Yeah,
for
so you got big league time, then you go to AAA.
We had traded for Orlando Cabrera, another good throwback name.
That's huge. He had the bat, didn't he? Like, what did he do with his bat? Do you remember that?
I can't remember.
I kind of remember. We'll look it up. I hope it's what we'll look it up later, but I think I know what I'm talking about. Keep going. You got me dialed.
So that whole month of August, I was down in AAA. Got called back up in September, and from there on out, I was playing a good amount of the time. Had a much better September than I had previous few months in the big leagues. And that next year didn't really make any like big moves at shortstop. We signed Ryan Terrio that off season, but he was playing mostly second base at that point. And, so the job was kind of mine.
So you won the job
mine to
out of
lose
camp.
at least.
Yeah, in 12. And you guys won the World Series.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jeez, dude. That's incredible. What's the first thoughts that go into you make that? Because your first year, I got to imagine you obviously don't know what lies ahead. Like you don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
You're just pumped to get into the big leagues. Did you notice anything from the team? Now this is going to get really cool. I'm happy I shared that initial nerve-wracking moment I had in 21 because I'm going to try to get us all the way to that thought process. Because in 11, you go up and it's really just getting in the big leagues. But you guys, was it a good team that year? Because you won the World Series in 10.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Buster getting hurt was a big loss.
Right.
But other than that, it was a lot of the same guys.
But you guys didn't make it to playoffs?
We didn't. I mean, I'm not saying this like I was the X factor by any means because I was hitting about 190. I was playing good defense, but I hit about $190 with like 2 homers at this time. But we can check the books on this too. But I'm pretty sure we were in first place in the NL West
in 11
at the trade deadline.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And when I came back up, I think we were like 5 games out.
I see.
It was a tough August.
We're gonna look that up. Yeah,
we got to look it up.
Yeah, tough August. Something to think about.
But I remember being out of it when we came back up. When I came back up.
I see. So then you guys have a good September. You play well in September.
I played well in September. I can't remember.
And then you go.
We weren't in the playoffs. I know that.
Right, and then you go in the off season. You don't know it's your job yet in 12. You're just kind of like, let's get after it, right? Like mentally, it's like, here's my big year. Yeah. You go into camp.
I'm hoping. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that it's still my job to lose, I guess. But
right.
They had designated Miguel Tejada, I think, when I came back up.
Okay.
Orlando Cabrera was a free agent,
so gone.
It was like me, Manny Burris.
I don't remember.
Who was my guy.
I'm stuck on Miguel Tejada.
He was like one of my mentors coming up. Like he helps me out with all the stuff that you need to know when you get to the big leagues, tipping clubbies and all that good stuff.
Just to
get there before the veterans do.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we had one bus. One bus to the hotel, and if you're a young guy, you can't be on it. So this is just like
you had to Uber, right, or taxi?
Taxi. There was no Uber. We had to taxi.
Was that league wide? I remember. I might be messing.
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure that was league wide because one time I was having breakfast with LeMahieu, and I can't remember who he was playing with, but he had a taxi. Around this time, I think, like those eras, that 2011, 12 time.
Yeah.
And he had to taxi there. I didn't I couldn't comprehend that.
Yeah.
Now I can.
No, that's what I mean. So Manny was helping me out with all that stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, on our roster, I think that was about it. And then we signed Ryan Terry. I can't remember who the other free agents were or anything that we could have potentially gotten, but.
And 12 starts, and that's what started the opening day stint. Because now you were there for all those years now.
Yeah.
And you guys win it that first year with you starting at shortstop. Buster's back, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys' arms were loaded. You had a good staff that year too, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Lincecum, Kane, Baumgartner.
Jeez. You had
2012 Zito. See, Jonathan Sanchez, I think, but he got hurt.
what about, was Javi Lopez on that team?
Yeah.
And he was a reliever.
Yeah. Javi was another one of my
He's a
guys,
good
my
dude,
mentors.
man.
Yeah.
He's a really good dude. I've always enjoyed listening to him and talking to him. He's doing pretty well in the broadcasting world too, isn't he? He's pretty sustained.
Yeah.
He's doing that with them still. Okay, so let's go into this. So now you go into 12 and you're starting, you make the team out of camp and you have big league experience. So something that I've watched you do is mentor not just position players. I feel like you did that with pitchers too, and just across the board. I mean, I met you and got to watch you and get to know you towards the end. And I feel like you had acquired so much of these, we'll call them wisdom tokens at that point. But obviously that's like where it kind of starts, right? And I feel like a lot of people have times in their career where they come up and down, like you're can establish your rookie year, right? Like how you just talked about in 11, but then you have it in 12 and you're the starter. And I think now, obviously you went this other way and turned it into this career, but I feel like a lot of times you can be in that position and fear giving it up.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you did.
I have a good opening day story for you.
Yeah, please.
So opening day, my first opening day start, 2012. I think I had a pretty good spring too. Like I was feeling good about myself coming into the season.
Yeah.
And we're playing the Diamondbacks. And I want to say second inning, maybe it was my first ground ball of the season. It's a hard hit ball. So I'm not going to say it was just like a routine ground ball, but it was a hard hit ball. Wrist ball eats me up, rolls up my arm. First ground ball of the season.
Welcome. Yeah.
And I'm pissed because like defense is my thing. Like that's what I came up for. That's what like everyone expects out of me. It's what I expect out of myself. And first ground ball of the season eats me up. So I'm mad about it, but we get out of the inning, I think without too much damage, and get in the dugout and top step. Ryan Terry goes, "Hey, well, at least you don't have to, pressure's off. You don't have to worry about the gold glove anymore."
Just lays that on you.
Yeah, which like if you know Terrio at all, like, that's just a perfect Ryan Terrio comment.
Sure.
Which like is funny now, but at the time I was like
devastated,
just so mad. But like thinking back on it, it's outstanding comment.
Sure.
But like I mean, the next 6 weeks I did not play very well at all. Like I wasn't hitting. I want to say the first 2 months of the season I had 12 errors.
Wow.
Yeah. So talk about like wisdom tokens. I feel like this was where I got one of them. Wotus talked to me. I want to say we were down by the cages in San Francisco, and he's basically like a dad talk where it was like, you got to figure it out. Like if you don't figure it out, like you're gonna get sent down. Yeah, you have to at least play like defense and do the routine things that we talk about and we work on and practice and all that kind of stuff. And I forget if it was the same day, but one of the next couple of days I talked to Sabian also.
Okay.
Who like, if you know Brian Sabian, like,
I know, I've heard stories.
Intimidating dude. Yeah. You don't have many like private conversations with, with the GM. Right. He goes in his office. There was like a separation of like front office and players. And every once in a while, like he really, really cared about the team and the players, and like knowing him now, like I know all this stuff. But we'd have a tough loss or something. You'd hear the door slamming and stuff like that. So it's like you get called in there into the office, you're a little bit intimidated. Yeah, you're going shaking. In there. Especially when you're 25. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah. I'm 25. I have 12 errors. We're in late May. Yeah. Late May. Yeah. And I'm like, oh gosh, like I might get I was legitimately thinking like I might get sent down. I guess. Sure.
So you're walking into this dude's office just vulnerable.
Yeah, very.
You're exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah, which I mean, I guess I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to be about, having talked to Wotus, but, you never know. I haven't had one of these meetings before. So, and it was basically along the same lines where it was like, he basically told me, like, I don't even care how you do on offense because you're here to play defense.
But you got to pick it
Make
up.
the routine plays.
Yeah.
You're going to make the great plays every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make the routine plays. Don't care about how you hit. And I feel like after hearing that from him, it was kind of like, okay, like just focus in on doing what I do and play good defense.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, it kind of like took the pressure off on the offensive side, and I ended up having a much better year the next 4 months. I think so. I had 12 errors the first 2 months. I had 6 errors the next 4 months.
Wow.
And played pretty good defense in the postseason.
And then you guys won.
Pretty good defense in the postseason too.
Yeah.
And won the World Series.
Wow, man. You know, one of the things that comes to my mind on that, and let's get some more wisdom tokens out of here. But you see, you did that in your first full season, really. We can call that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you see, and I feel like this might have happened to you. I can't remember how 21 went. Did you, because you crushed in 21 that first year I was there too. Did you start off hitting well in 21? Do you remember?
No, I mean, it depends on what you look at. If you
Sure.
look at like the normal numbers, like if you look at average and on-base percentage and
Like your basic
stuff like that, then no, it wasn't a good start to 21.
but then you killed it.
But if you looked at like the advanced stuff where it was like expected,
Okay.
like I was hitting the ball well.
Yeah.
I guess I was like a little bit unlucky at the start, but also had a lot. I think part of what like probably helped get me through the first. I think it was a tough April maybe for like those kind of numbers. But I think what helped me get through some of that stuff was like I had a lot of big hits, and like I want to say probably more than half of my hits were extra base hits.
Okay.
So it was like I was still able to get some of those like big hits that kind of keep you going, and obviously great for the team too.
No doubt. Well, I asked that directly because the thing that stood out to me that year was having the ability to watch people closely in the game struggle and gain a respect for how long a season is, and seeing people who struggle early but then are still able to go out and play regularly in baseball. Because that's the most absurd thing to me about the game is that if you have 12 errors in May, there's still 120 games left.
Right.
And it's like you have to keep doing that. Like you have to keep like going out, you know, and I don't, no disrespect to other sports, but it's like if you have a bad game, you have a few days to sort of, all right, let's gather myself. Like you probably had that talk with Woe and Brian, and we're playing the next day or that night. And then you had to do it the next day and the next day. And I just remember, I don't remember all the statistics, but I remember watching that in 21 and watching you sort of struggle statistically and come out of that and play a full season and salvage the season. And you ended up not even salvage is not the right word because you crushed.
Ended up being my best season.
Yeah, I was going to say like not the right word there, but that's kind of what I just gathered from that story from 12. That's like similar. Obviously I wasn't with you or watching it at that time in my life, but what is that in somebody? And maybe it's easier to generalize it, but what is that thing that you found to be able to struggle and sort of sit with it? Because I'm sure those are sleepless nights too, in uncomfortable conversations with people close to you, and obviously coaches, and feeling uncomfortable in a clubhouse. What are things that come to mind that help you continue to like keep going when things don't look as bright? Does that make sense?
I think in 2012, I think it was Sabian telling me like
just giving you the freedom.
Like in maybe like somewhat of a harsh way, letting me know that he has like the faith in me to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
And that he knows that I can play defense despite me not having a good first couple months defensively. And just like kind of the comfort in knowing that he believes that I can keep going back out there and doing it, I guess.
Yeah, but it's like you I get that. That makes sense to me.
Because then it's like then you have the confidence in yourself.
Believed in,
because then you're like, because I mean, you have 12 errors in 2 months. You're like, you're thinking about every ground ball.
That's what I'm
at that
saying.
point.
That's what I can't even form the
And
question.
that's
I can
what's
just
tough to get out of your head,
right.
where it's like, I can't mess this one up. Where now it's like, he told me that he like, in so many words, he told me that he believes that I can do it. So now it's like, well, now he believes that I can do it. Now I believe that I can do it too.
Do you think
Even if I had that before, it kind of reinforces
yeah.
it.
And
Like,
then it
all right,
opened you
now
up.
I can.
And then you win it. And then obviously you have a good year and you win a World Series. So you
Yeah.
kind of come out of that in 12. And I've got to imagine you gain confidence, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But in those moments that you, throughout your career, when you're standing at shortstop and there's a huge 40,000 person stadium behind hitters and there's crowds everywhere and there's sound and intensity, and you have a moment of don't hit ball to me, and you obviously had to move through that. What is that? And this is, again, I use the word general because that happens in like all of our lives. Like we all have a moment where you're nervous or your imagination is taking you someplace you don't want it to take you. Mm-hmm. And you have to continuously put yourself in the arena, I guess.
I think what I've told guys is like treat it like you treat practice like a game, mm-hmm. because then when it happens in the game, it's like you've done it so many times that you don't have to think about it anymore. Because mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds funny, but like the best place to be, I think, mentally in baseball is like not thinking.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, like at the plate, you don't want to overthink. When you're on defense, you don't want to be thinking about the ground ball. You just field the ground ball and do what you've done so many thousands, millions of times before. So that's why I always tell guys to treat every ground ball in practice like there's a good runner at the plate, and then the game comes, you won't be sitting back on your heels fielding a ground ball or taking it kind of nonchalant or whatever. And then in the game, it speeds up on you because then it's like, oh, now I have to make this play really quick.
Yeah.
And now it ate me up because I'm a little nervous because I didn't do what I was supposed to earlier in practice.
Did you have a moment in that season when you knew I'm going to do this? Like I'm about to kill this thing. Like I can.
In 2012?
Yeah. Like you're going to have a long career. Like I'm about to really dominate this position.
I don't know if I ever
really
felt that.
See, I'm curious about that too. Because I wonder
until I got there.
I just wonder if that, like when you were a kid, did you have that intention in the game? What was it like when you were growing up?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be in the big leagues.
Sure.
I didn't think about how my career would go.
Right.
Once I got there or anything like that. I just wanted to, growing up in the Bay Area, I wanted to play for the Giants.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like there wasn't much thought past that. And I think part of the reason I think I was able to have a long career was just always kind of my thought. I was like kind of just day by day, short memory, like one game at a time, I guess, as cliche as that sounds.
No, it's beautiful.
Like
it's
it was
so
more
beautiful.
just like being in the moment and not thinking too far ahead or worrying too much about what happened before.
Well, that's something where think about that. And now, how are you? Man, there's a lot I want to go on that. I want to go on that because it's so frustratingly simple that makes it so beautiful, right? It's like I want to say to you, it's more than that, but I know that would be just wanting to make it something more than what it is.
Yeah, like
eventually it is just doing the same thing over and over and over again, right. And being able to sustain that over and over and over again. And a guy who really impressed that or pushed that into me, really mentored me, was Matt Williams. Matt Williams was one of the most disciplined, focused, moment-to-moment people I'd met in my entire life. And he told me a lot of, he let me in ground balls this whole year. And I was doing ground balls with the boys. And it was great. Nice. But I did it largely because I wanted to be around Matt Williams. Because to him, hitting a ground ball every day was like magic in it.
Yeah.
Because it set him... It was bigger than that. It was obviously getting your reps and all those things, but it was like, that was like his cue in points. It was like, he just did everything by the moment. And you did that for so many years. And now you're in a position where, you're navigating a world of an unknown, And this is when I reached out to you because I've thought a lot about you in this. What is that like in this very moment? Like, what's the moment to moment experience? Because you've got to be in a world of uncertainty where you just did that for X amount of times. Yeah. Even last year with the Cardinals. Like, that's had to have been a year reflection, even when you were last season. Just because of how much you just routined and did something. And even you have these huge highs, you win a World Series, you go another season, and next year, in 2014, you win another World Series. Yeah. You just were so consistent. I kind of just got chills as I said that. You were so consistent for so long. That is like remarkably, that's spectacular. But it's like, where is that taking to you this moment? If I go back to that original question.
I mean, I don't know. A couple of people have like asked me, like, how does it feel to be retired? And I'm like, right now, it doesn't feel that different, to be honest. Yeah. So it just feels like an off season. But like I was saying with the workouts, I don't throw and hit. Like, that's the biggest difference, because in a typical off season, I'm doing the same stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, the kids are in school, they're in sports. So most of my days are like getting them to school, some time at the house where it's like, now we have a 1-year-old.
Yeah,
so
you're taking care of the baby.
Taking care of her, getting stuff done around the house, get the kids from school, and then getting them to their sports. That's like a daily thing. And then like workouts mixed up in between. So like that feels like a normal off season to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be different come like February and March, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, this wasn't like a forced retirement or anything like that. Like, I wanted to be.
You were ready.
I was ready to be done. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. What is that?
I'm not saying that any teams were knocking on my door or anything like that, but I was ready to be done and be at home.
Well, I guess it's still, if you're not thinking about it in baseball, I'm just thinking about it in terms of life. It's like, you know, you had to have felt that in your gut. Like, this is, I feel it now. But it's still, even that feeling in your gut had to be unknown, because when you knew you were playing shortstop for day after day after day, and eventually you probably solidified that, and you weren't thinking 2012, I'm going to get sent down if I make an error, I would imagine.
Right.
But it's like, what part of the exciting, what are things that you're curious about? What was that gut feeling where you were able to make peace with something you did for so long? And again, it's not just baseball. I think that I would imagine parents go through that when their kids go off to college. Like, you just like did the same thing year after year after year. What's that feel? Am I getting a good enough?
I mean, it's a feeling of freedom.
Yeah, I bet.
Really. And I mean, obviously the kids being at home and needing to be places and stuff like that doesn't give us like all the freedom in the world to do whatever we want. But at the same time, it's like, I'm going to be at home and can get into whatever I want, start new hobbies or something like that if I want to. Huh? Like, I feel like there's enough stuff that needs to be done around the house. A lot of my time is going to be that, just because like the baseball season's so crazy. Like, you know, start February, March, all of a sudden we're gone for 6 months. Yeah. And then you come back to the house and
you basically black out for an entire summer and fall.
Right. And you get back to the house and you're like, it just feels like you aren't in your house very often.
I bet.
So it's like, I feel like we moved into our house 7.5 years ago, and there's still like stuff where it's like, wow, we haven't even gotten to that yet.
You're on the loop. Yeah. You're on the hamster wheel.
And especially having 5 kids. Like,
no doubt.
That's part of it for sure. But
do you have, this comes to my mind, because you are such an iconic giant, and I just wrote this book, that book I just finished, I gave to you. Mm-hmm. So much of it, I wrote it through the perspective of basically in your life, you play this character, like you play a role, and the world identifies you as that role. And then but without words is the concept of you're really none of those things, kind of how you just said. Like, I have all this freedom now, and I'm sure learning who Brandon Crawford is now is probably really exciting. And I would imagine if I were to bet, like, that was probably some of the buildup of the gut. It's like, I'm ready to go learn what that is, what that part of life is. But what was it like being? In
ways, yeah. But yeah. I feel like in other ways, I already knew who I was. Maybe if the the public or whatever just thought of me as a baseball player. It's like,
That's what I'm saying.
baseball player was like third on my list.
That's what I think is curious. That's what I like about you. And I liked this about you when I was around you, and I was bummed that I felt like I didn't really I feel like I didn't really start getting to know you until you left. And then as you left, it was like, that was kind of a bummer. I feel like I was really starting to get to know that guy, because your mind you have a beautiful thinking mind. You're compassionate. You're a good teammate. You're a father, like a father as an athlete. I can't comprehend in doing those things. But was there a time in your life that you noticed, like, did you notice after a while how to disassociate those two from being this, like, because to the fans in the city of San Francisco, they're not going to think like that. I don't think they're going to look at you as, no, this is the franchise shortstop who's won multiple World Series, and there's his painting on a building. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just think that you did have a clear ability to disassociate the two and be yourself, and then also be that. But I don't know the experience of that.
I think, your wife and kids love you no matter what. So like, even if they were like, once Braxton, my now almost 9-year-old, started really getting into baseball, he would every once in a while be like, oh, you went 0 for 4 tonight or something.
Yeah,
like a little disappointed.
That's great.
I still know that he's disappointed I didn't get a couple of hits, but he's disappointed for me, not at me.
Right.
He still loves me no matter what. So like, they make it easy, because you get home and it's like, most of the time they don't really care how you did.
Right.
They'll be happy for you if you did well, but like, you go for 4, for the most part, it's like, okay, yay, Dad's home.
Yeah.
Or Jalen's like, hey, Brandon's home. And I mean, she's the reason that it was easy, I think. Just like you said, being a dad, and an athlete, she was the one taking them on trips and making sure that they were there during the season for me, and coming to games with, most of the time in San Francisco, 4 kids.
Yeah.
And trying to just make all that work, and would have been tough without her doing all that. So give her a shout out.
Yeah,
for
no
that.
doubt needs it.
And then like I said, just like coming home, like she'd be as happy as anybody if I had a great game, but wouldn't even mention baseball if it was a tough game. So that makes it easy to kind of.
I was going to say, how much do you think that plays into the success of somebody's career? That has to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be hard to go home after a hard game and just, be reminded of it, or, I don't know, just sit there and think about it without any sort of distraction or anything like that to get your mind off of it.
Did you notice a change after the World Series, or after the 12? Let's just start with 12. Did you notice a change after the World Series in 12 with, like, what's that involvement of fans and pressure? Like, did you feel anything with that? I don't have the exact question of it on my head, but you basically are now like nationally
more recognizable known. Yeah.
Right.
I think what's crazy about Giants fans is, so we went on that trip to Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
I had my debut. Mm-hmm. It was a nice debut, the Grand Slam.
Yeah. So you love Milwaukee.
And then so it was Milwaukee, St. Louis, and we went back home.
Okay.
When we went back home, we had gotten an apartment, went to the grocery store, the Safeway down the street.
Yeah.
And I had multiple people already recognize me. I had been up in the big leagues for a week.
Wow.
And I was already getting, recognized in San Francisco, because I think that's kind of a testament to Giants fans, because they pay attention, and they know their players, and they love the Giants. So I mean, that was after a week. So yeah, after a season and a half in a World Series win, it was
wild.
much bigger scale.
How do you maintain consistency of your craft when that stuff happens? Because another thing is, and again, I saw you at the end, I'll keep repeating that, you were in a different level when I met you, because you were able to be a family man, be a teammate, turn it on in the first inning, play a full 9. Like you were able to come back the next day. Like you just were able to do things that a veteran does, which makes a lot of sense. But were there parts early were there fans and there's recognition and all that stuff, and it made it difficult to still keep your mind focused on the craft?
No,
You were able to handle that.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I appreciate fans, recognizing me or, whatever, like popularity or anything like that, it's never meant a whole lot to me, like being more recognizable or famous or whatever.
Yeah.
If anything, I'd rather go under the radar. So so something like that's never really affected me a whole lot. And then as far as like in game, like 40,000, with high expectations and stuff like that, I feel like I've done a pretty good job for the most part of kind of like tuning it out to where it's almost like silent and in my head, once the pitch is being thrown or whatever.
Is that something you have to work on? Or were you just able to find that, kind of going back to it?
I don't remember.
I ask because I'm so curious about this in general.
I feel like I had always done a pretty good job of like kind of slowing things down. And I think that's, by slowing things down, that's how you're able to kind of focus in more and tune out the extra stuff. Because I do remember a couple times, like when I pitched,
throwing fuzz.
When I first
you threw to me a few times. I think in Milwaukee, I played catch with you one time. You threw a bullpen in Milwaukee. Do you remember that? Yeah, nasty sinkers, by the way.
Yeah, but when I finally did pitch in 23 against the Cubs, like when I went out there, I was hearing everything. So I wasn't doing a very good job of like.
But you were outside of your comfort zone
because it was something different that I hadn't done before. So. I think when I first went out there, I was like, the heart was beating a little faster than usual and threw 6 straight balls.
I remember that.
Just to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Just to show pitchers how easy it is.
See, that is cool to think about of moving out of a zone and you were aware of that.
Yeah. So I think for the most part, I've done a good job just naturally at doing that, but there were times that I guess it's probably more of out of comfort zone, or at times maybe when you're thinking too much, like at the plate, like I'm sure there were times where it's like I was hearing too much of the crowd.
Yeah, you get you notice it
where it's like maybe you're going through a tough spell or something like that. You swing at 2 pitches in the dirt, and you're like, oh god, here we go again. And then you start hearing stuff, and game just starts speeding up on you. And I think for the most part, when I was able to slow things down, that's when I would focus in better.
And you were able to kill that. And you felt that naturally defensively pretty after kind of early in your career. You had your road. There were
probably times in 2012 where I was hearing it a little bit more. But
did you ever notice that with people who came up? Like, was that one of the things? Okay, here's a question of it, because you'd see let's say you see a younger guy and they're struggling with that. And let's call it your WOTUS moment, because I'm sure you've had to do many of those for people too, where you kind of have to be WOTUS. Is that like an energy you feel like on younger guys? Did you feel that in clubhouses where you could see somebody was feeling that, or they were too sped up? And I'm sure you did feel that. What was the timing as being a player to player on when to communicate and be WOTUS flip-flop? You have to go be woe.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that with guys, but it was usually you would just kind of feel out a good time. For the most part, not in game.
Right.
Like WOTUS, I think did it. I think we had like early work or something like that. Like, so way even before BP. That's when he had that conversation with me in 2012.
Sure.
So like, I think you just find the right time. Sometimes it'll be in the hot tub. Or in the sauna. Yeah,
on a bus, in a hotel. And sauna's a great spot, getting a drip.
For the most part, I feel like for the most part, I didn't talk about it on like bus or a plane. I feel like that's where it's like time to not think about baseball. Yeah, just get away and not think about it. But just like a quiet time in the clubhouse or something like that. Sometimes if the guy's still maybe had a tough game, or maybe had a good game, who knows. But where he's like still sitting there in the clubhouse and it's a quiet time. And
Yeah, and you feel it.
Yeah, you feel it. You can go talk to him.
Did you feel?
Depends on the guy too.
Yeah,
usually.
no, I can imagine. Did you ever feel like as you got longer into your career and you sort of you get to the top of the hierarchy, does there ever a transition point in your career for, I guess, again, another thing in general, but in the length of it, where there's an accountability where you're kind of the person who can do that for somebody, but then you also have to play shortstop every day? Like, what's that balancing act? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like be a mentor, but also.
Yeah, but you also have to
day.
produce and go play too and deal with your own self.
I don't know when exactly that started. I know more of the mentoring probably happened the last few years of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I remember earlier on, talking to guys. Thinking like Joe Panic, like 2014,
Stud,
where one of the best second basemen I played with.
Mm-hmm.
But like he came up in 2014, like kind of late in 2014, ends up obviously being a huge part of our World Series run too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm 3 years into my career, and I was having talks like that with him already at that point. I feel like
Nice.
And he was super easy to have those talks with too, because he was very like
Receptive.
easy to talk to and receptive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's also he was pretty new to second base still also. So like you could see like things could potentially speed up on him sometimes, but he did a great job.
Here's an interesting thought too, because you were in that position for so long in that stadium, understanding these things, and you had different second basemen that came up, even different third basemen, right? I mean, Longo was there when I was there, but there were people who bounced through too. But
Pablo.
Is there a energy? Like, do you have to shift energy to, like, how is the energy of it? Because obviously everyone's a big leaguer. I get that. But there's a new guy coming and you had to kind of form. Did you have to form to different energies in the infield? Like a different second baseman?
I didn't change much myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing with new second baseman, new third baseman, stuff like that is communication.
Take me deeper into that.
I mean, just being able to communicate about stuff on field.
And just communicate like who you are, how you see things, those sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that deep.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just more like making sure that you know, or making sure that they know that you're going to be here in a certain situation, or confirming that they are going to be there in a certain situation.
Sure.
Like stuff like that. So I feel like I was always pretty good about that.
Is that hard in the big leagues?
I heard confirmation about that.
Yeah, I love that.
This past year.
There you go. Is that hard moving around in the show and having people come from so many backgrounds of baseball? Like I know for you, you say it's simple.
I think that's what's cool.
Yeah.
It's like I had so many different second baseman, third baseman with like completely different personalities, backgrounds, languages.
Yeah.
But it really isn't. I feel like it isn't that hard. Like you don't have to overcomplicate it. It's just
this is what
simple.
it is.
Yeah.
I love it.
I feel like it can be very simple. Some guys I feel like make it a little too complicated, or don't think that it's that important, which is the big mistake too. I feel like.
I bet. I think the hard thing that is always frustrating me, especially right now in talking to you, is how unbelievably awesomely simple you keep it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a hard enough game already. So, I mean, if you can simplify it as much as possible, it will make your job a lot easier.
Yeah, but it's like I want to keep trying to grab. It's selfish reasons, right? It's my own selfish desire.
Yeah.
I just feel like you have such a unique perspective to an experience that so few people will have. And in the limelight of the World Series, the limelight of being in a baseball city, the limelight of kind of coming up young, honestly. I mean, it's still young. 24 is a young age, right? I mean, that's, and then you have this long, sustainable pursuit, championships, bunch of, I mean, it's still a major market team too. And it just blows my mind in a really cool way. I mean, I'm pumping your tires here. It just is still frustrating to me how you're able to maintain such a consistent, simple, durable, sustainable approach. And I think you keep answering it in the same way. It's just like being yourself, really. You're just like genuinely being who you are.
I feel like it's like the same reason for why I would never like celebrate a big play or hit or anything like that unless it was a walk-off.
Right. Fair.
Because it's like
it's an outlier.
You're right. Walk-offs are different, but like you would never see me like super pumped up about any play that I made or
and you made some sick plays. I'll pump you up again there.
They're
just say what it is. Go on YouTube
career,
if you need to.
There are videos.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'll see pretty much the same face after all of them.
Yeah.
Because for the same reason, I feel like baseball is such a up and down roller coaster ride throughout a game, let alone an entire season, that it's like, I'm going to stay as level-headed, like not get too up or down at any one point in the game because you never know what's going to happen next. I mean, how many times have you seen a guy make a great play, he's all fired up or whatever, and then or have a big hit, and he's like doing all the celebrations and everything. Sure, yeah. I haven't even thought about pitcher side as much, and then they go get picked off, or they go on defense, make an error.
Yeah,
or it's like it's just so up and down. Like why? I feel like for me, it was easier to just stay kind of even keel.
It's like it's Zen, dude. You just like found love in the Zen of doing the same, keeping it simple and being able to routinely do the thing. Did you, this is my last, we can wrap up here, but this is another thing. Did you find in the consistency of it, success in the boring is what kind of keeps coming to my mind, but being able to show up to the yard every day, what was like in post-career, so in the position you're in right now, what's something that kind of comes to your mind or your heart, and what gave you the ability to sustain such, I'm going to use the word discipline there, because that is a discipline. I mean, it's not easy. It is simple. It's not easy to not get jacked up after hitting a bomb and then go and play defense, or like making a sick play. And you do see it all the time.
And I mean, I definitely was 100% too. I would just try not to let it get too high. Take some deep breaths and be like, all right, now I got to go play defense.
Is there a thing that you can think of that you've kind of taken from that lesson that you gathered over a decade of just kind of hammering that down? Is there something that you've walked away from the game of a meaning, like a deep meaning, to understanding how important that is?
Yeah, you keep trying to find these deep
I'm trying,
meanings.
dude. I just am so I know I am digging. But dude, I was digging you at the end there too, though. In our last year together, you just I can't help it. You're fascinating to me. I just love how you do that.
I would say the one thing that I can like take home, I guess, with me is kind of related to parenting, where it's like I try to stay as consistent as possible with my kids. Whether that's like discipline or making sure like I have time with each of them, not getting like too up or down with them.
Sure.
And I think those are kind of three areas where like with parenting, I kind of take the same approach, I guess.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'll wrap it up here, but I just gotta say thanks again. I appreciate you handing over some time, man, and having a conversation with you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. I think congratulations on obviously a tremendous career, but more so, I think it's really cool that you felt that in your gut, And congratulations on retirement. I feel like retiring and the freedom beyond the game, the ability to go be free and be more of who you are and be more with your kids and more of that is going to be so fun for you. So, you know, as your buddy, like I'm pumped for you, and it'll be fun to watch whatever you do. It'll just be fun to watch you continue being more of who you are.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So thanks.
Cheers, brother.
Appreciate
a lot
it.
of fun. There we go.